This might just be the moment hip-hop fans never thought they'd see. The Game, the same man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with rap legends, may have just ended his own career trying to come for Eminem. And the internet is absolutely losing its mind. It all started when The Game dropped what fans are now calling the most desperate diss track in modern rap history. The title alone had everyone tuning in, but not for the reasons he hoped. Within hours, clips were spreading like wildfire across X, Reddit, and YouTube. Fans were saying, "This ain't beef. This is suicide." What was supposed to be a lyrical showdown turned into a full-blown disaster. The Game's ego clashed with Eminem's legacy, and the result? Pure chaos. Producers backed out, old friends distanced themselves, and even loyal fans started switching sides. Rumors say Dr. Dre himself made a phone call that might have changed everything. But here's where it gets really wild. What The Game said in that diss wasn't just about rap. It cut deep. Personal, family deep. And now insiders claim Eminem's team is preparing to respond in a way no one saw coming. This isn't just beef. This might be the fall of The Game. It started quietly, almost too quietly. For weeks, The Game had been teasing something massive on his socials. Mysterious captions, late-night studio posts, cryptic tweets about real rap being dead. Fans thought he was gearing up for another comeback, another classic album like the documentary. But what he dropped instead shook the entire industry. At first, it was just a clip. 30 seconds. The Game sitting in a dark studio, cigarette smoke curling up into the dim light, a sinister beat rolling underneath his words. He looked into the camera, eyes cold, and said, "Ain't no white boy running this culture. I'm taking my respect back." That one line was all it took. Within hours, the internet exploded. Hashtags like Tar, Game vs M, and Respect the West were trending. Fans were divided, some cheering, others in disbelief. He didn't just come for Eminem. Did he? One fan wrote. Another replied, Game really trying to end himself this time. By midnight, the full diss track dropped. The Marshall Mathers mistake. And it was brutal. The Game went after everything: Eminem's career, his family, his legacy. He accused him of hiding behind white privilege, of ghostwriting help from Dre, of losing his hunger. "You just another Elvis, living off black pain," he rapped. "I paved the lane you speeding in." The bars were sharp, but the tone? Desperate, forced, like a man swinging wild punches just to stay relevant. At first, some fans tried defending him. At least he's speaking his truth. But within hours, it became clear The Game wasn't winning this battle. He'd crossed a line. Because somewhere in the second verse, he mentioned Haley, Eminem's daughter. He called her name out, taunting, mocking, crossing the one boundary Eminem never allowed anyone to touch. That was the moment everything changed. By the next morning, Eminem's camp went completely silent. No tweets, no comments, nothing. Just silence. And if there's one thing hip-hop fans know, when Eminem goes quiet, he's loading something. Meanwhile, The Game was doubling down. He went live on Instagram, shirtless, holding a drink, laughing with his boys. "Ain't nobody off limits," he said. This hip-hop, not daycare. If he's the GOAT, tell him to bark back. But people weren't laughing. Even some of his closest friends, producers, artists, collaborators, were distancing themselves. One insider claimed Dr. Dre refused to take his calls that week. Another said 50 Cent told someone privately, "Game's digging a hole he can't climb out of." And fans could feel it. The energy shifted overnight. What started as hype turned into tension, a sense that something much bigger was coming. Across social media, you could feel the countdown. Everyone waited for Eminem's response. Memes flooded timelines. YouTubers broke down every lyric. Analysts speculated about whether Dre would intervene, or whether Eminem would finally unleash his fury on The Game the way he did on MGK. But the real twist? Behind the scenes, things were worse than anyone imagined. Sources close to The Game claimed he wasn't just chasing clout, he was angry. Angry at how the industry moved on. Angry at Dre for choosing Eminem over him years ago. Angry that his name wasn't brought up in conversations about legends anymore. And according to one studio insider, that diss wasn't spontaneous, it was planned. Apparently, The Game had spent months writing that track, replaying old interviews, digging through Eminem's lyrics, trying to find weaknesses. One producer even said he wasn't trying to battle M. He was trying to humiliate him. But what The Game didn't realize was how deep Eminem's roots ran, and how powerful his silence could be. because while the game was going live every night, laughing, calling himself the real rap god, Eminem was nowhere to be found. Not on social media, not in interviews, not even in public. Until one night, a mysterious tweet appeared. No caption, no hashtags, just an image, a black notebook sitting on a table with the words, "Noted." The photo was from Eminem's verified account. Fans went insane. That single word, "noted," had the internet in a frenzy. "He's writing," they said. "It's over for the game." Meanwhile, the game kept posting videos of himself in clubs, laughing it off. But behind the cameras, people said he was restless, irritated, nervous. The comments under his posts turned vicious. Former fans called him washed, jealous, a has-been trying to trend off a legend. And that's when things really started to unravel. According to one insider from his team, the game's label began pulling back support. Some sponsors even paused upcoming deals. They didn't want to be associated with what was quickly becoming one of the most controversial moves in rap. The game started blaming everyone around him, accusing his team of betrayal, his label of cowardice, and even hinting that Dr. Dre had been bought out by Eminem. But the truth was simpler. Nobody wanted to stand next to a man who just disrespected a legend's family. And deep down, even the game knew he might have gone too far. Late one night, one of his longtime producers, Big Duke, tried talking sense into him. "Bro, this ain't it," Duke said. "You poked the wrong bear. Em don't play about his daughter." The game just stared at him. "I made my move," he said coldly. "Now let's see if he's man enough to respond." But when you go after someone like Eminem, silence is never peace. It's the sound before the storm. And that storm was about to hit. For 10 long days, the rap world waited in silence. No statements. No leaks, no interviews. Just whispers, rumors, the calm before something catastrophic. The game's diss had become a wildfire, but the smoke was starting to choke him. Even the platforms that once hyped him up were now laughing at the backlash. Reaction videos racked up millions of views. Comment sections were brutal. This wasn't brave, it was suicidal. He went after a man who built his own mountain. Game really thought this was 2005. By now, Eminem hadn't said a single word publicly. And that silence, that haunting calm, made fans even more anxious. Because when Eminem does respond, he doesn't just diss you. He dismantles you, and then it happened. Out of nowhere, a YouTube premiere notification appeared on Eminem's official channel. The Rebuttal, directed by Eminem. No trailer, no teasers. Just a time, 9 p.m. EST. When the clock hit 0, millions tuned in. The video opened in black and white, an old tape recorder clicking on. Eminem's voice, calm but cutting, filled the silence. You ever watch a man bury himself and still ask for applause? Then the beat dropped. It wasn't just a diss track, it was a demolition. Line after line, Eminem dissected the game's entire career. His past with Dre, his fallouts, his hypocrisy, his need for validation. Every bar hit like a bullet. You said I took your lane, but you parked in mine. You scream West Coast, but Dre ain't call you this time. I gave you life, you threw shade for the lights, now you praying for views while I'm ghost in the night. The game thought he had baited the GOAT, but instead, he handed Eminem the perfect setup. Midway through the track, M played a snippet from one of the game's old interviews where he praised Eminem as untouchable. Then the beat stopped, and Eminem laughed, a slow, mocking laugh that sent chills through fans. You used to call me the greatest. Now you call me a target. Guess you couldn't stand living in my shadow long enough to see your own reflection. The internet exploded. Within an hour, the rebuttal hit 20 million views. Every lyric was analyzed, quoted, and turned into viral memes. Fans said it was the most calculated destruction since Kill Shot. Others called it the end of the game. And the game? He went silent. For 2 whole days, no posts. No stories, nothing. Even his close friends didn't know where he was. Rumors said he'd flown to Mexico to get away from the noise. Others claimed he was back in the studio trying to record a response. But insiders said something different, that he was shaken. That after hearing Eminem's record, the game smashed his phone against a wall and screamed at his engineer, "We ain't losing this!" Still, deep down, he knew. He couldn't match that kind of precision. Because this wasn't just about lyrics, it was about reputation. Eminem had spent decades building an empire on wordplay and respect. The game had just tried to punch up, and missed by a mile. Worse, Dre had quietly unfollowed him. That one silent move said everything. For years, Dre had been the game's mentor, his big brother in the business. But now, nothing, no texts, no calls, no defense. Just distance. Insiders close to Aftermath Records said Dre had told mutual contacts, "I warned him not to go there. I told him some battles don't make you stronger, they make you disappear." Meanwhile, Eminem's fans were ruthless. They flooded the game's Instagram with clown emojis, memes, and endless comments calling him finished. One even wrote, "He didn't just end your career, bro. He wrote your obituary in rhyme." The damage was spreading fast. A festival in LA quietly dropped the game from its lineup due to unforeseen circumstances. Brand deals began to fall through. His PR team reportedly begged him to apologize, but the game refused. In a private meeting with his manager, he slammed his fist on the table. "I ain't bowing down to no man. You think I'm scared of a verse?" His manager sighed. "It's not about fear, it's about the fallout. You dissed the one dude nobody touches. Even 50 kept it business and you made it personal. But pride's a dangerous thing." Instead of making peace, the game went live again. This time his tone was cold, defensive, tired. "They mad because I said what everybody's thinking," he said. "I'm real enough to say what others whisper." But the comments told another story. "Game, stop. You're losing fans every minute." Man's talking to himself at this point. Even celebrities began to weigh in. 50 Cent posted a laughing emoji on X, writing, "Told y'all M don't miss." Now look. Roysta59 dropped a subtle tweet. "Respect the craft. Silence was his mistake." By the end of the week, the narrative had flipped completely. The game wasn't the underdog, he was the villain who miscalculated. But the twist nobody saw coming came from Detroit. A video surfaced from a local charity event. Eminem was there, calm, smiling, posing for photos. A reporter asked if he had any message for the game. Eminem paused, looked straight into the camera, and simply said, "I wish him peace." That was it, no threats. No mockery. Just peace. But that one sentence hit harder than any diss could. Fans said it was the final nail in the coffin. Because when your enemy no longer sees you as a threat, you've already lost. And that's when the game's world started truly collapsing. In the days that followed, longtime collaborators began stepping away. One producer said, "The phone stopped ringing. Nobody wanted to touch him." Another insider revealed his label quietly froze funding for his next project. Even family members began to notice the shift. His brother told TMZ off record, "He's been quieter than I've ever seen him. Angry one moment, silent the next. It's eating him up." And that's when the paranoia kicked in. Friends said the game started believing there was a blacklist against him, that major platforms were burying his content, that Dre was working behind the scenes with Eminem to cancel him. But the truth was simpler. The fans were done. No one wanted more drama. No one wanted another diss. People had moved on. And in hip-hop, when people stop caring, that's worse than hate. By the end of the month, the game was trending again, but for all the wrong reasons. His latest single barely cracked 200K views. His live shows were half empty. The very culture he claimed to represent had quietly walked away. And just when everyone thought the story was over, something unexpected happened. Late one night, a leaked clip surfaced. The game, in the studio, drunk, alone, recording what sounded like a voicemail to Dre. "You built him, not me," he slurred. "You picked your side. Just remember, I was loyal when it mattered." The video went viral overnight. Fans called it heartbreaking, others called it karma. But everyone agreed on one thing. The game was unraveling piece by piece. And little did anyone know the worst was still to come. Because what the game did next would turn his downfall into a full-blown disaster. The days after that leaked studio video felt like a slow-motion car crash. Everyone could see it coming, but nobody could stop it. The game's fall from grace wasn't loud anymore. It was quiet, painful, and public. He had gone from being one of the most respected names out of Compton to a man whose every move was being mocked online. The memes were merciless. Even rappers he once mentored started making subtle jokes about Game's last verse. But what hurt most was the silence from his own circle. People he'd known for years, engineers, producers, even his bodyguard, stopped answering calls. His manager cut communication, citing creative differences. The label still hadn't reinstated funding for his album, and word on the street was that Dr. Dre's team had told several streaming platforms to lay low on promoting anything involving the game. And when Dre turns, on promoting anything involving the game. And when Dre turns his back, so does the industry. The game tried to act unfazed. On social media, he kept posting old photos of his glory days, flashing trophies, concert shots, platinum plaques. But his captions told another story. They love you when you quiet. They hate you when you talk truth. Real ones never fold. I said what I said. Yet behind those posts was a man falling apart. Insiders said he barely left his house. Studio sessions turned into therapy sessions. One close friend who asked to remain anonymous said, he'll start talking about Dre, then switch to M, then start crying about how everybody switched up on him. It's sad, bro. But even through all the chaos, the game wasn't done fighting. Not yet. A few weeks later, he announced something bold, a documentary series titled The Realest Rapper Alive. The teaser was dramatic, black and white footage, clips of his old interviews, and a narrator saying, they tried to bury him, but he's still breathing. The game claimed the series would expose the industry, naming names, telling truths the fans never heard. Fans were intrigued, but the industry saw it for what it was, a desperate move to stay relevant. Behind the scenes, the production was chaos. Networks pulled out, streaming services passed, and funding became a nightmare. Eventually, the game had to resort to self-financing. His accountant begged him to reconsider, saying it could bankrupt him. But he didn't care. He wanted revenge, not money. In one clip that leaked online, the game could be seen staring into the camera, saying, they want to make me the villain because I said one man ain't bigger than the culture. You know what? Maybe I am the villain, but at least I'm real. But what he didn't expect was betrayal from inside his own team. Midway through filming, his videographer leaked raw behind-the-scenes footage to a gossip blog. In it, the game could be seen screaming at his crew, smashing equipment, and accusing them of working for Eminem. The clip went viral instantly. Twitter lit up with posts like, "Bro think Eminem sent spies into his studio." This man's fighting ghosts now. Even people who had sympathy for him started backing off. The game had turned into a walking headline, and not the kind anyone wanted to associate with. The breaking point came one night when he went live again, drunk, slurring his words, pacing in front of a half-empty studio. Dre betrayed me. Aim ain't no god. Y'all worship him like he walk on beats, but he bleed like me, he ranted. Y'all don't see the politics. They blackballed me because I'm too real. But fans didn't see real. They saw pain. His comments were flooded with heartbreak and disbelief. Some begged him to stop before he ruined his legacy completely. Others laughed. But one comment stood out. You not fighting Eminem anymore. You fighting yourself. And maybe that was true. Because the next morning, when the live stream was clipped and spread across every blog, even those closest to him knew. This wasn't a beef anymore. It was a breakdown. By then, the industry had completely turned its back. A few of his peers tried to reach out. Snoop reportedly called and told him, "You gotta chill, nephew. This ain't worth it. You letting anger write your ending?" But the game didn't listen. He was convinced he could flip the narrative, one final move to win the people back. So he announced a new single titled No Apologies. It was supposed to be his redemption, his way to reclaim control. The snippet he shared sounded raw, emotional, personal. Fans thought maybe, just maybe, this was his moment to heal and move forward. But the full song was a disaster. Instead of peace, it was venom. He doubled down on every accusation, threw new shots at Dre, and mocked Eminem's fan base again. One verse even implied that Dre had sold his soul for a white boy's crown. Within hours, backlash erupted. Even his most loyal fans couldn't defend it. "This ain't honesty," one wrote. "This is bitterness on a beat." And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, they did. That same night, Eminem's daughter Haley posted a cryptic story. A picture of her father in the studio, smiling, with the caption, "Some lessons don't need to be taught twice." The internet erupted. Everyone knew what that meant. Another response was coming. But this time, the game didn't react. No posts, no interviews, no live videos. For the first time in months, he went completely dark. Insiders said he'd stopped answering his phone altogether. His house lights stayed off. Studio bookings were canceled. Friends said he was mentally exhausted. One even described him as a ghost walking through LA. The fame that once fueled him now haunted him. The attention he craved had turned into ridicule. The game, the man who once called himself the heart of the West, had become an outsider in his own city. And then, something unexpected happened. One morning, a new song appeared on SoundCloud. No promotion. No announcement. just uploaded under the title Letter to Marshall. It wasn't a diss, it was an apology. The game's voice cracked as he rapped about losing himself, about jealousy, about chasing ghosts. I was mad at the world, but took it out on you. I forgot who I was because I wanted your view. It ain't hate, it's hurt. I just couldn't admit it. I threw a punch at a god, and I'm the one who got hit. The internet froze. Fans didn't know what to think. Some called it mature. Others said it was too late. But everyone agreed. It was the most honest the game had sounded in years. Even Eminem's fans, surprisingly, showed compassion. One viral comment read, "This was the game we missed. Not the angry man, the artist." For a brief moment, it looked like redemption was possible. The game had finally let the anger go. But as history shows, peace in hip-hop never lasts long. Because what happened next? Reignited everything. When Letter to Marshall dropped, the internet froze for a moment. That rare pause in hip-hop when the culture collectively exhales. After months of chaos, diss tracks, and endless noise, the game's unexpected apology felt like a calm after the storm. But in the world of hip-hop, calm doesn't last. It becomes conversation, and conversation becomes judgment. The day after its release, social media was on fire again. Not from anger this time, but from debate. Was this redemption or retreat? Did the game find peace or just wave the white flag? Did Eminem actually win, or did he teach everyone a lesson about silence? Within hours, Letter to Marshall hit trending charts on YouTube, TikTok, and even Twitter Spaces, where fans dissected every lyric like it was a confession. Some listeners heard maturity, a man taking accountability. Others heard defeat, a fallen soldier trying to rewrite the ending. And the commentary didn't stop with fans. Hip-hop journalists, YouTube analysts, even podcasters jumped in. The Joe Budden podcast discussed it for 20 straight minutes. Rap Daily released a segment titled, "When Beef Turns into Reflection." Even old interviews of the game resurfaced, creating a timeline of pride, regret, and self-awareness. The general consensus? Eminem never needed to respond again. The world had already crowned the winner. But the conversation turned deeper than rap. People started asking what this feud really meant for hip-hop culture itself. Was this another example of ego clashing with legacy? Or a mirror showing what happens when artists refuse to grow past competition? Every fan had a theory. One viral tweet said, "This wasn't game versus M, this was old school pride versus modern humility. And humility won." Still, others argued the game deserved respect for owning his mistakes publicly. "You can clown him all you want," one comment read, "but it takes guts to face millions of people and say, 'I was wrong.'" And that's where the story took on a life of its own. Because the moment Letter to Marshall became bigger than the feud, it became a lesson. Documentaries began popping up on YouTube with titles like The Game's Fall and The Price of Ego, When Diss Tracks Destroy Legacies, and How Silence Beat Controversy. Each one reframed the drama not as a rivalry, but as a modern fable about pride, reputation, and the hunger to stay relevant in a world that moves too fast. Even Eminem's fan base seemed to move on gracefully. There was no gloating. No continued war. Just quiet respect for a man who, even at his lowest, reminded everyone what passion looked like, even when misdirected. Months later, clips of Letter to Marshall began being used on motivational pages, over footage of sunsets and quotes about redemption. The same man who had once been a symbol of arrogance became an example of self-awareness. And that shift said something powerful about hip-hop's evolution. The same culture that once cheered for destruction was now applauding vulnerability. The same fans who demanded blood in every beef were now reposting lines about forgiveness and growth. That's the thing about legacy. It doesn't end with the last diss track. It ends when people decide what lesson to take from it. By the year's end, Eminem never publicly addressed Letter to Marshall. Not in interviews, not in tweets, not even on stage. But fans noticed subtle signs, moments that felt like silent acknowledgement. During one of his shows in Detroit, Eminem paused before Lose Yourself and said, "Sometimes, walking away says more than walking back." That single sentence lit the internet on fire again. People knew exactly who he meant, even if he never said the name. And just like that, the narrative reached its final form. The game became a cautionary tale. Not of failure, but of consequence. Of how pride can blur the line between confidence and chaos. Of how Amin can fight so hard to prove a point that he ends up proving the opposite. But also of how an apology, even if it comes late, can still shift perception, still spark conversation, still remind people that behind the fame and the numbers are humans, flawed and searching for meaning like anyone else. Today, the echoes of that feud live on not in playlists, but in discussions. You'll hear it in barbershops, podcasts, Reddit threads, not as gossip, but as reflection. People debating whether the game's downfall was self-inflicted or inevitable, whether Eminem's silence was strategy or wisdom. And that's the irony. In trying to destroy someone else's legend, the game accidentally reinforced it. Because while one man screamed for attention, the other whispered, and the whisper echoed longer. So when people now look back at that headline, the game just ended his own career trying to come for Eminem. They don't just see beef. They see a moment in hip-hop history when the culture stopped cheering for chaos and started learning from it. In the end, that's the real story. Not who won, but what everyone watching learned about pride, legacy, and letting go. And there you have it, a saga that began with ego, burned through pride, and somehow landed on redemption. Whether you believe the game destroyed his career or transformed it, one thing's for sure, this story made hip-hop look at itself in a mirror. It reminded everyone that talent isn't just about bars and bravado, it's about choices. About knowing when to fight and when to walk away. About realizing that sometimes silence is the verse that hits hardest. So here's the question for you. Did the game go too far, or did he just show us the cost of speaking your truth in a world that thrives on drama? Was Eminem's silence genius or just grace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation isn't over. And if you've been here from the start, from the first diss to the last apology, you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss another deep dive into the stories shaping the culture. Because this right here, is more than rap news. It's real life, real lessons, and real reflection from the world's most unpredictable stage. From pride to peace, from chaos to clarity. This was the game versus Eminem, and it will be remembered, not just as a beef, but as a turning point. Until next time. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and remember, in hip-hop, it's never just about who spits the loudest. It's about who's still standing when the noise fades.